The rights to Australia's online gambling sector could be handed to First Australians and returned soldier groups under a new proposal. Billions of dollars are currently leaving the country through offshore casinos without any taxation flowing back to Australia. Backing this is federal MP Bob Katter, and he joins me now from our Brisbane studio. Bob Katter, thank you for your time this afternoon. This scheme is modelled from the gambling industry in America. Who would it benefit here in Australia?
The First Australian communities, and this is coming from the real communities themselves, not the do-gooder class in the cities who claim to be black and really aren't. This is coming from the heartland itself. The chairman of the committee, they've run Delta Cattle Station for over 50 years now, and it's the biggest cattle station in Australia. And if you've run a cattle station successfully for 50 years, you're pretty good. In every respect, you are real good. So these boys know what they're doing, and it'll return money to us so that we can look after ourselves. The government is throwing about $10,000 million a year, and it's all ending up in white pockets. Go to any of the communities, you know, go to Dormagee, go to Pumparao, Kowanyama. The money's not getting there, but we're going to organise the money ourselves. I can assure you it'll get there and it'll stay there. The boys have been over to talk to the Red Indians, the Aboriginal peoples of the United States, and gambling has been enormously successful here. But we're not promoting gambling. The gambling's already taking place, and the gambling money's going overseas. Now it's going into the place where it is most needed and where the government is beggaring up enormously badly.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you. Should we be looking to shut down harmful industries like gambling rather than seeking to benefit?
No, you must understand that you online gamble now. Everyone in Australia online gambles. The vast bulk of the gambling, in fact, is taking place online. There are no bookmakers at race courses much these days. All the gambling is done online. And most of it now is going offshore. That's the information that's been provided to me. So rather than go offshore, it will go in this direction. I might also mention the RSL. We have the highest, I hate to use the word, but I suppose I have to use the suicide rates for our returned servicemen, probably of any other country on earth, and they're not being looked after. More than half of the RSLs in North Queensland have closed their doors, and that was one place where they could go and call home. Well, that home has been closed to them. So they're another group that are being left out in Australia, and this is a good way to deal them back in without any cost to anyone. There won't be any more gambling, there won't be any less gambling. It's just that the money will stay in Australia now instead of going overseas. And into the hands of people who've already proved their point. They have run, as I say, the major part of the people involved in this have run a cattle station for over 50 years, the biggest cattle station in Australia, over 50,000 head of cattle.
So you don't think the money for these groups should be raised in a different way?
Well, you could suggest to me how we're going to raise it. We're not allowed to own any land. My brother, cousin, blackfellas, we're not allowed to own land. On the 20% of Australia that we're supposed to own, we own nothing. We can't get a title deed to it. Well, I mean, it's possible, but it's not going to happen in your lifetime. Issue of a title deed. And it's not hard to do. I mean, I was minister once upon a time, and I think Eric Law, two blackfellas who run the department, I think they issued 800 title deeds in the space of about 3.5 years. It's not hard to do. But they're not doing it, and that's the major cause, really, of the situation that we're in. But if the figures for First Australians as a group of people become public knowledge throughout the world, then God help my country. God help my country. We will become the South Africa of this century. And I'm ashamed to say that, but it's better now that I say it and we do something about it rather than face what is coming down the track. That big train with its light on is coming straight at us at the present moment, and this is a way of dealing with a problem that we haven't dealt with at all. And there is a wonderful book out by a senior educationalist in Australia, professor, Melbourne University, on how the white fellas have never got it right with the black fellas. Well, this is a case where the black fellas do it themselves. When I was minister, I watched the black fellas do it themselves, and you would be surprised when you give responsibility to people just how responsibly they act. And Normanton, my home area, the Gulf Country in North Queensland, and the boys that are proposing this out of the Normanton area, well, they're an excellent example. The Mayor of Normanton was in fact the first Australian. It's a white fella community, but he was the Mayor there. So outstanding people, outstanding idea, stop the money from going overseas. It's a pity our government didn't do the same thing in all of our other industries.
And so what sort of time frame would this proposal be delivered in?
I think that it could be set up within 2 or 3 months if there's a willingness by government. But I've found over the last 20 or 30 years, of my 50 years in Parliament, that government just doesn't function much. It's not that they're bad people or that they're lazy people or even that they're political people. It's just they have lost the ability to function, and that's got a lot to do with the politicisation and sycophancy involved in the public service, where public servants were chosen upon their merit and could force their way to the top because of their achievements. Now that is not the way. You know, ingratiating yourself to your superiors is the way you'll get promoted, and or through political ingratiation. And I think that's got a lot to do with the current situation of government's just not able to do anything. I mean, we issued 800 title deeds in the space of 3.5 years. In the last 30 years, I would doubt whether there's been 100 title deeds issued in Queensland.
Okay. Just finally...
So 800 in 3 years, when the black fellas themselves are running things, when the white fellas come in and take control of it all, they can't figure out a way to hand out 100 title deeds in 30 years.
Okay. I'd just
Sarah
like to get
Madison
your thoughts,
is dead
Bob
right.
Katter, on Prime Minister Scott Morrison said he would push for a royal commission into the national bushfire crisis.
Look, I rejected the comments by Israel Folau, but I'm rethinking that. I mean, if you put nature above the interests of humans, then A, the humans will die. And that is what is occurring, particularly in places like North Queensland. So we have this new religion. Well, it's not new, it's paganism. They sacrificed humans to the tree gods in northern Germany and in Great Britain. They sacrificed humans to tree gods. They sacrificed them to the crocodile gods, and there's precedent for that, Cleopatra in Egypt. But we got the re-establishment of putting, you know, the interests of nature over human beings. Firstly. Secondly, my brother cousins ran this country for 20 or 30,000 years, and they worked out that you have to fire the country regularly or you're going to be in deep trouble. You'll have a build-up of fuel on the ground, and it will have an explosive effect that will take human life. So once again, we put trees over human life. And so maybe Israel Folau in his comments wasn't all that far off the mark. But if you've been doing it right for 20 or 30,000 years, I go back to Sarah Madison, the professor's book. But the white fellas come along and say they know how to do it all, and we don't want to damage any trees ever, you know, the trees are sacred. Well, now you are watching the trees vanish as well as the human beings.
Bob Katter, thank you so much for your time.